Light changes everything in a room, and the right plant can turn a plain wall into living art. When sunlight hits the right leaves, shadows stretch, ripple, and move like slow-motion patterns. These are not just plants you water and forget, they interact with light all day long. Morning shadows feel soft and calm, while evening light creates bold, dramatic shapes. If you care about mood lighting and atmosphere, plants can do more than lamps ever could. Some leaves cut light sharply, others diffuse it like a natural filter. That contrast is what makes a space feel designed, not decorated. In this video, we are looking at plants that turn light and shadow into a daily visual experience. Anthurium brings drama the moment light hits its glossy leaves and sculpted spades. The thick heart-shaped foliage blocks light cleanly, which creates sharp shadows instead of soft blur. Those wide leaves often reach 6 to 10 inches, which is big enough to cast bold silhouettes on walls and floors. The natural waxy surface reflects light during the day and throws darker defined shadows as the sun lowers. Inside lighting, this plant creates contrast that feels intentional, like studio lighting. Anthurium also keeps its leaf structure upright so shadows stay crisp instead of collapsing downward. Because it thrives in bright indirect light, it performs best near windows where light angles change throughout the day. This mix of structure, shine and size makes Anthurium a strong choice for anyone using plants as part of aesthetic lighting design. Calathea white fusion creates movement in light unlike almost any other houseplant. Its marbled white, green and lavender leaves bend and tilt, which makes shadows shift throughout the day. Each leaf grows around 8 to 12 inches and the patterned surface breaks light into layered textures instead of solid blocks. When side light hits the plant, the lighter sections glow while darker veins cast soft artistic shadows. This makes walls look alive rather than flat, especially in morning or late afternoon light. Calathea leaves also follow the day-night cycle, which means the shadow pattern actually changes between daylight and evening. It prefers bright indirect light, which is perfect for aesthetic setups near filtered windows. That constant motion and contrast turns Calathea white fusion into a living light feature rather than just a decorative plant. Dieffenbachia brings bold shadow impact because of its large upright leaves and strong contrast patterns. The broad oval foliage often grows 10 to 14 inches long, which allows it to block light in wide, dramatic shapes. Variegated centers let some light pass, while darker edges create layered shadows that feel deep and dimensional. When placed near a side window, the plant throws strong silhouettes that soften toward the edges instead of looking harsh. Its stiff stems keep leaves lifted, which helps shadows stay visible higher on walls rather than dropping flat. Dieffenbachia performs best in bright indirect light where sun movement changes the shadow angle throughout the day. That balance of size, structure and pattern makes it an easy choice for creating natural, dramatic lighting indoors. Rubber plant creates some of the strongest and cleanest plant shadows you can get indoors. Its thick leathery leaves can reach 12 to 16 inches, which makes the shadow shapes bold and unmistakable. Because the foliage is dense and opaque, it blocks light almost completely, producing high contrast silhouettes on walls. When light comes from the side, those long oval leaves stretch shadows that feel graphic and modern. The upright growth habit keeps shadows tall, which works perfectly in living rooms and corners with angled sunlight. Rubber plants thrive in bright indirect light, so they naturally sit where light movement is most dramatic. This combination of size, structure and density turns the rubber plant into a natural lighting tool, not just a houseplant. Monstera is one of the best plants for dramatic shadow play because of its split and perforated leaves. Those natural cutouts let light pass through in broken patterns, which creates layered shadows instead of solid blocks. Mature leaves often grow 12 to 18 inches wide, which makes the shadow reach far across walls and floors. When sunlight hits from the side, the holes and slits project moving shapes that change every hour. This creates a slow cinematic effect that feels intentional and high-end. Monstera prefers bright indirect light, which places it right where shadows are most visible. Its climbing structure also lifts leaves higher so shadows stretch vertically instead of staying low. That mix of scale, movement and texture makes Monstera a standout plant for aesthetic lighting setups. Bromeliads add dramatic shadow interest through the bold rosette shape and stiff arching leaves. The long narrow foliage rises upward and outward, which causes light to break into sharp radial patterns. Many varieties grow leaves 12 to 20 inches tall, which is enough to cast striking star-like shadows on nearby surfaces. Because the leaves hold their shape firmly, the shadows stay defined instead of fading. When light hits from above or the side, the layered leaf structure creates depth that feels sculptural. Bromeliads perform best in bright indirect light, which naturally highlights their form without washing it out. That strong structure combined with symmetry makes bromeliads excellent plants for creating artistic light and shadow effects indoors. Red Chinese Evergreen creates dramatic shadow contrast through its thick pointed leaves and bold color blocks. The deep red and dark green tones absorb light differently, which makes shadows look richer and more layered. Individual leaves often reach 8 to 12 inches and grow in an upright fan shape that breaks light at sharp angles. When placed near side lighting, the darker sections cast stronger silhouettes while lighter areas soften the edges. This gives walls a textured shadow effect instead of flat shapes. The plant holds its form well so shadows stay consistent throughout the day. Because it thrives in medium to bright indirect light, it naturally sits in ideal lighting zones. That balance of color structure and density makes red Chinese Evergreen a subtle but powerful shadow casting plant. Fiddle leaf fig creates bold architectural shadows thanks to its oversized violin-shaped leaves. Each leaf can grow 12 to 18 inches long, which allows it to block light in wide dramatic forms. The thick matte surface absorbs light strongly so the shadows appear dark and well-defined. When sunlight comes from the side, those tall stems project large moving shapes that stretch across walls and ceilings. This gives rooms a gallery-like feel, especially in late afternoon light. The upright growth habit keeps shadows elevated instead of falling low and flat. Fiddle leaf fig thrives in bright indirect light, which places it exactly where shadow movement is most visible. That scale height and leaf density make it one of the most powerful plants for aesthetic lighting effects. Moonshine snake plant creates clean modern shadows because of its tall upright silver-green leaves. The vertical blades grow 2 to 3 feet high, which makes shadows stretch long and straight across walls. Its smooth surface reflects some light while blocking the rest, which creates crisp high contrast lines. When side light hits the plant, the narrow leaves cast repeating striped shadows that feel minimal and architectural. This works especially well in contemporary spaces with simple lighting. Moonshine snake plant handles bright indirect light but also adapts to lower light without losing structure. Because the leaves stay rigid, the shadow pattern remains consistent all day. That stability and vertical form make it perfect for controlled dramatic lighting effects. Philodendron creates dramatic shadow effects through its flowing vines and oversized heart-shaped leaves. Many varieties grow leaves 10 to 14 inches wide, which allows them to block light in soft but noticeable forms. The way the foliage drapes and overlaps causes layered shadows instead of single flat shapes. When light hits from the side, the leaves create depth that feels relaxed yet intentional. This gives walls a natural gradient rather than harsh contrast. Philodendron thrives in bright indirect light, which places it right where shifting shadows are most visible. As the vines grow and move, the shadow pattern changes slowly over time. That organic movement makes Philodendron perfect for creating warm atmospheric lighting with plants. Prayer plant Beauty Kim creates soft dramatic shadows through its patterned leaves and natural movement. The oval foliage grows 6 to 10 inches wide and spreads outward, which breaks light into layered shapes. Dark veins block light while lighter areas allow a gentle glow that softens the shadow edges. When side lighting hits the plant, the patterns project subtle textures instead of harsh silhouettes. This makes walls feel calm and artistic, especially in morning and evening light. The leaves also shift position throughout the day, which causes shadows to slowly change. It performs best in bright indirect light where contrast stays balanced. That combination of motion, pattern and softness makes Beauty Kim ideal for aesthetic lighting with a relaxed mood. ZZ plant creates dramatic shadow impact through its thick glossy leaf stalks and upright form. Each stem rises cleanly and can reach 2 to 3 feet, which allows shadows to stretch vertically on walls. The smooth waxy leaves block light efficiently, creating bold repeating shapes rather than scattered patterns. When placed near side lighting, the plant casts rhythmic shadows that feel structured and modern. Its symmetrical growth keeps the shadow layout balanced instead of chaotic. ZZ plant thrives in bright indirect light but also holds form in lower light, which keeps shadows consistent. Because the foliage stays rigid, the shadow pattern barely shifts during the day. That reliability and clean structure make ZZ plant a strong choice for controlled aesthetic lighting. Norfolk Pine creates layered dramatic shadows because of its tiered branch structure and fine needle-like foliage. The horizontal branches spread outward, which breaks light into soft repeating patterns instead of solid blocks. As the plant grows taller, the shadows stack vertically, creating depth that feels calm and atmospheric. When side light hits the branches, the needles diffuse light, which gives walls a textured forest-like effect. This works especially well in corners where light angles stay consistent. Norfolk Pine prefers bright indirect light, which keeps its shape full and shadow detail visible. The symmetry of the branches keeps shadows balanced rather than messy. That natural structure makes Norfolk Pine ideal for creating gentle dramatic lighting without harsh contrast. Polka Dot Begonia creates striking shadow drama because of its elongated angel wing leaves and high contrast spotting. The leaves often grow 8 to 12 inches long, which allows them to block light in sharp asymmetrical shapes. Dark green surfaces absorb light while the silver dots reflect it, which creates layered shadows with visible texture. When side lighting hits the plant, the leaf edges cast crisp outlines while the spotted surface softens the interior shadow. This balance makes walls look artistic rather than heavy. The upright cane-like stems lift foliage higher so shadows stretch across walls instead of staying low. Polka Dot Begonia thrives in bright indirect light where light angles change throughout the day. That mix of high pattern and contrast makes it one of the most visually dramatic plants for aesthetic lighting setups. If you pay attention to how light moves through your space, plants can completely change the mood without flipping a switch. The right leaves turn sunlight into patterns that feel calm, dramatic, or artistic depending on the time of day. These plants are not just decor, they are part of the lighting design. As the sun shifts, the room evolves with it. Try placing one or two near a window and watch how shadows transform your walls. If you enjoyed this kind of plant-focused aesthetic content, support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. Drop a comment and tell us which plant created the best shadow in your space.